Hal, there you are.
I am here.
Welcome.
Hello.
He is.
Very, very cool. What's going on in your land in terms of can and can't do's?
We're pretty wide open. You know, we had that 7 to 10 days when we were unessential or non-essential, and that got tricky, and it happened so fast. We were trying to get used to it, but now we've got the total workaround. It's no big deal. If I have an owner-occupied property, you know, I tell them, you know, they're going to be vetted more than you would if you were flying on an airline. And then, you know, the other thing we do is if it is owner-occupied, is we have the option to let the buyer just walk around the outside of the property first. So I tell my sellers that are nervous about it, hey, you know what? They're going to be pre-qualified. They're going to be healthy. They're going to do a total walk around with the windows open. And after all that, they still want to see your house. Then they're going to come in for 2 minutes with gloves on, mask, booties, and not touch a thing. And it's going to be safer than going to the supermarket. So that kind of puts them at ease when it comes to that. But, you know, some people I just find it's 50 or 40% of people just want nothing to do with having their house on the market. Well, that means we just incubate them, as Mike says, until they feel the coast is clear.
Incubate. He didn't even know that word till 5 weeks ago.
Yeah. Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
He, you know, no, that's for sure. Well, Hal, this is, we appreciate this at an nth degree. I know your time is valuable. You sell lots of houses, make a lot of money. You do give back to the system, which is very, very cool. You've always done that. And we just appreciate you and your time today. So thank you very much. Right now, there's about 50 agents that are on. We should be somewhere around 60, 65 before we're done. My format was I just thought I would go through it, ask you a few questions, see what was going on, kind of dig a little bit in through your head, kind of wander around, meander a little bit, and come up with some stuff. So I wanted, if you could kind of give us just a little of a Reader's Digest version of your background, where you work, how many years in business, how many deals, you know, just a kind of a snapshot of Hal Sweasey to get us started here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I'm up in San Luis Obispo County. So about 100 miles north of Santa Barbara. And there's a sign on one of our off ramps here outside my office. And you go to the right and it says 183 miles to San Francisco, and you go left and it's 183 miles to LA. So we're right in the center of the coast. We got 250,000 people in the county. We've had one person pass away in their 80s from this virus. So, you know, it seems pretty safe. And, you know, this year the goal is to do 156 transactions. So that's me and 3 buyer's agents. So we've got 67 or 8 right now closed or pending. So we're on track, but a lot of that heavy lifting was done until about March 20th. So we've slowed down a little bit, but we're still doing transactions. That's it. Oh, Neil, you're on mute.
Yeah, my mic went dead again there for a minute. So let me set this. I'll hit that. Brett, you recording?
It's recording.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right, thank you. Hal, unmute yourself again. Thanks. So I didn't hear the part. What was your goal for this year coming into it?
156 transactions.
156 transactions. Mm-hmm. And how many of those will you do yourself?
80 of them.
80 of them. Okay.
Yep.
You have a buyer's agent or a listing agent that helps out?
Oh, good question. So I do all the listings, and then I've got 3 buyer's agents. So they'll average about 25 per person, you know, and yeah. And we're on track as of right now, but you know, obviously the market's getting more challenging, so we have to put in extra work. And you know, there's certain challenges that come up with, you know, having people, what's called sheltering in place. My buyer's agents have kids, so they're dealing with that. My kids are grown, so I don't have to deal with it. All I get to do is work. Neil? Can't hear you.
We can't
hear
Neil,
you. No one can hear you, Neil.
No.
We can see your lips moving. We know you're trying, Neil.
Did you take a trip with the kids when you were when they were younger?
Yes. Yes.
Got it. You want to
Okay.
kind of tell that story? I think that's a
Oh,
fabulous story.
sure. So, in 2007, my kids were in 7th and 8th grade, and I was inspired by Mike Vance, who spoke the last time I think he spoke at Mike Ferry's retreat in Palm Desert. And he was talking about the experiences, and that's a motivator for me. So we took our 7th and 8th grade, 2 boys, took them out of school, and around the 1st of September, we loaded up a 31-foot RV, towing a car, a bunch of bikes, and we did 8,500 miles around the US. So that took about 11 weeks, which is longer than I would recommend for a family of 4 to be in an RV. But we learned a lot, and we got to see a lot of the great country. See Robert laughing. And then we pulled up stakes and kind of resettled and realized that we could do it. So this was a full 9-month plan. So starting in September, and we went to Australia for 11 weeks. So we stayed on the coast of Australia. Then we went to New Zealand for like 6 weeks. And then we went to Bali for a week, and then we flew to Europe. So that was about February to go to Italy. So my wife always wanted to take our kids because we're from ski country originally. So we went and spent about 2 months in the Italian Alps, and then Tuscany, and then Spain and France. So all said and told, we pulled them back about the middle of May the following year, put them back in their junior high so they could get a little sense of that. They spent about 3 weeks there, and then they had their summer vacation. So it was a 9-month, pretty much around the world trip. So it was very fun, very inspiring, and you know, obviously a once in a lifetime deal. I'd love to do it again, but looking back, I don't know how I pulled it off, and before I pulled it off, I don't know how I pulled it off, but we did it.
That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, the questions that come to my mind quickly are, I mean, are you independently wealthy? Did you have the money to be able to A, fund the trip, B, stop your business, C, how did you restart your business?
Okay, good. So yeah, so no, I wasn't independently wealthy at the time. I was probably doing maybe on a good year 70 transactions, maybe on a lower year 50, and that was as the market is kind of heating up. And I've noticed as the market gets hotter, more of a seller's market, my production has a tendency to fall because you get so many new entrants. So when the market slows down, it gets better for me. So that was fall of 2007. It cost us about $175,000 to do it. And my business, I kept my assistant and one kind of young person that was out of college that was licensed, and they basically paid my monthly bills of about $10,000 a month. So my business just was flat and broke even. I was able to sustain that. We spent about $175,000 in cash. And then I came back in June of 2008, which was probably, you know, I mean, that was a tough time. And so it was a little bit easier to leave than I thought. And it was way harder to come back because probably that first 6 months, it was like, I forgot how hard it is to do this business, how hard I worked because I wasn't doing much. I was just having a great time vacationing basically for 9 months.
Right.
So, you know, that first 4 or 5 months, actually, I was going backwards. I was like borrowing money to stay in the business. And I had that one assistant. I said, hey, we need to maybe restructure because I had all sorts of nice benefits. And I go, maybe you want to get an independent contractor. So she basically just said, I don't want to, I'm just going to collect unemployment. I wasn't firing her. I just didn't know what to do. Right. So then 2009, I think I got back up to maybe 60 deals. And I think by 2010, that's the first time I went over 100. So that's when I broke that 100 mark. So that's how that all.
So let's talk about the. I mean, you restarted your business. I mean, being out of the business for 9 months, being no marketing, no phone calls, et cetera, hardly to speak of. You know, you started from a standing stop, correct?
Yeah, more than I had anticipated. Correct.
Right. Okay. And so it not only did it cost you $175,000 real cash to fund the trip, what kind of gross income were you making the year before you left?
I think maybe 2 years prior, I got up to 800, but then I had backed down to maybe 6, you know, in 06, because our market started shifting and I could kind of smell it. It's like, this doesn't seem sustainable. And then 07, I worked like 8 or 9 months of the year. So I don't know, I maybe made $300,000 or $400,000, you know, and had one assistant.
It sounds like the 9-month trip might have cost you over $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Lost income and real cash.
Sure.
Wow.
It's a good
for you.
motivator. You know how Mike is always trying to get us to make financial commitments? Well, that one was bigger than I anticipated.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so you came back in, you restarted from a standing start. You had a little bit of name recognition, I would suspect.
Yeah.
What did you do? What?
Well, I went back to basics. That's that was the worst real estate recession I had seen, and probably most people had seen. So, not egotistically, but I was still pretty much the number one agent in the area. But then, if you weren't in the REO business, so a couple of REO agents started to take over, and they were doing 100 deals a year, right? So for me, I finally made the connection between taking listings and doing transactions, because it's like, oh, okay, I took 50 listings, I did like 50 deals. This year I took 60 listings, I just did 50, I did 70. And I went from, I think, 50 to 60 on average, and I'm hover around that range. And like I said, a good year might've been 75 in that range, in the 70s. And then I went to 90 and I did 60 deals, but then the next year I did 110 or 12 listings and did 110 or 12 sales. Now that's listings sold and buyer sales. And up to that point, I would have like a part-time buyer's agent or assistant that would show properties, and I'd pay him a referral fee, that sort of thing. So that's when I broke that mark. So then I had to get better at being a listing agent and focus more on listings than just trying to piece together deals and show buyers and be more scattered. So I really focused on the listings.
So what was the discipline, the mindset to be able to make that shift? Because when you're starting to do 70, 80, 90 deals, 100 deals is 8 transactions a month, every month, more or less, right?
Right.
Okay, so 8 transactions. Most of us can't manage 2 or 3. And you're at 6 to 8, bouncing off of 8 or 9 every single month. So how'd you make that mental shift?
Well, I think I was always pretty good at delegating, right? So I got an assistant years before, and once I put the deal, it's probably a strength and it's a weakness, and I've had to get business maturity about this, but I would put the deal in escrow, and it would be, see ya, right? So it'd be like a waiter delivers your meal and you never see him again, right? Or somebody else is going to come clean up the mess. So I was good at delegating, but I was always, a little impatient. So I jumped to like, oh, I haven't found any listings. I've been prospecting for 2 or 3 hours or 2 or 3 days. It's like, well, let me try to find a buyer, do something different, or, so I would just get sidetracked. So it was just a matter of going back, and it's a challenge even to this day. When you do and put in the work and you don't see the immediate results, it's easy to start to look other directions. Now, I never went to Brian Buffini, or I would never do anything else, but my distraction would be, oh, well, let's go look at a buyer or do something else, or let's try something a little bit different. I was always good at prospecting, but I really got more focused on appointments and dealing with the better quality sellers. And that meant longer gaps of time before I felt like I was doing a deal, but it was the only way to build the business. Okay?
Got it.
So delegation and focusing on the listings, which is so much easier than working with a buyer. Okay, we all need to work with buyers. I'm not saying that. I just like, if you're going to build the business, you need to have the inventory.
Right. Okay. Generate the sign calls, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right. So fast forwarding that a little bit over time, is getting listings because of the competition right now easier for you or harder for you? Not this COVID market, just before the COVID market.
Well, I think the more a seller's market is, the more options a seller has, right?
Okay.
Because, hey, let's face it, if it's a hot seller's market, somebody said it, and I'll just repeat it, you could be a monkey, and if you put the right price on it, the thing is going to sell, right? So there's no counseling, there's no coaching, there's no interpreting the marketplace. So yeah, when the market's hot as a listing agent, you're going to have more competition, you're going to have more downward pressure on commissions, right? And then you've got friends, right? Not half, a good portion of my past clients now have real estate licenses. Okay, I'm in a small town. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's a problem in itself.
It's a different circumstance, right? So now I sense it's going to be a tougher market. So the skills are going to be more required, and people are going to be more selective rather than picking their best friend that just got licensed. Those people, one, probably can't last, and two, there'll be a flight to quality, I think, from your, sellers and buyers.
So what are you doing different right now to differentiate yourself to the flight to quality?
Well, I'm going to jump into the challenges in this market. So I'm in my office. It's a 1,700 square foot office. For a while there, I had 2 people that were working here, but everybody else was nervous and they went home and they work from home. So I can't decide that, right? So now I'm here. And so usually I have an assistant near me that if I need something, she can get it so I can get back on the phone. Well, excuse my language, but now I'm my own bitch because my assistant works from home. And by the time I send an email or figure it out, it's just, I'm doing it. So I feel like in a certain respect, I'm regressing back to an agent that has to cover a lot more things during the day or wait and be slow. And I just don't have the patience. So the challenge in this market, and I think it's probably true for a lot of people, is like, hey, I got to stay on the phone and set those things aside and figure out I had a little bit more administrative time. Okay. So we used to have happy hours. You remember that at bars? You can go to a bar and they'd have cheap drinks at 5 p.m. Remember those days?
Yeah.
So now I have administrative time, and so that I didn't have before. So at noon I have a crappy hour. So I deal with the crap with somebody on the phone, right? So then I'll just go home and drink by myself instead of happy hour, right? So yeah,
I love it. So I've already got 2 thoughts here: jump into the challenge and a crappy hour. Thank you.
yeah. Right.
I mean,
So
I got my
keeping
things.
Yeah. So keeping a schedule, I have a new schedule. It's my COVID schedule, right? So when I'm here by myself, and if I was working from home, it would be way harder, but I'm set up here. I've got my computer over here and I've got my prospecting room, and it's just my habit. Because when I go home, it's where I relax. I'm not used to working from home. So I'm ineffective at the house. So I'm safe here. I've got one of my listing managers here in the front part of the office. So we might pass in the hallway, but we're safe. But, it's a COVID schedule. I've got more administrative, other things packed in, and I'm spending a lot more time with my existing clients. Okay. Just holding hands with sellers and buyers. Okay. In escrows, active listings. Okay. And then a good portion of my calls are with my past clients.
So how big's your database?
It's about 2,000 people, maybe a little bit more, but 1,000 of what I call golds that I try to talk to once a quarter. A lot of my clients leave the area, or they've passed away or whatever, or they're remote sellers, so I never met them, so they're not that great of referral sources. So at this stage of my business, I need to be more selective in who I'm talking to.
So that's interesting. So is your market second home kind of a market?
There's a lot of that here. Yeah. And then, so we have a university, so you have parents buying places for their kids. So that's a good spring market for us. So I think about 40%, and I live in San Luis Obispo. It's not a vacation place, but it's the center of the community. And then you have beach towns like Pismo Beach, et cetera, which are 10 miles away that I serve. I think if you looked on average, we probably have 40% non-owner occupied properties.
Wow. Okay.
So the transition to make a listing presentation for me is not so tough, because a lot of them I'm already doing it by phone anyway.
Are you did you transition to this Zoom presentations and stuff like that?
No, I just say, hey, do you want me to come see you at the house, or you want to do it remote or virtually? And I'll give them the Zoom option, but I haven't done one yet.
Interesting.
Do you know Mitch Shaboyan? He's a coach for Mike Ferry.
Of course.
So Mitch works in Fresno, and we're like a destination place for the people from Fresno. And he has a beautiful home in Cayucas, 10 miles north of here. So I'm at the beach on a Saturday. Here comes this guy running down the beach. I go, and he's got a pit bull or something, right? And there's a few people. It's not like LA, but there's a few people on the beach. And of course, I'm yelling at him saying, hey, you call that running? I'm giving him a hard time. And I get him to pull over. So we just chat for a minute. And he goes, hey, I got to ask you, I'm asking all my coaching clients, you do stuff over the phone. I go, yeah. He goes, have you done any Zoom deals yet? And I go, no Zoom presentations yet, right? Because, you can do it by phone. I'll send the people the comps. We'll go through the comps. I tell them, hey, I want you to imagine we're sitting side by side at your kitchen table. If you have any questions, let me know. And the hardest part is for me, who talks fast, is just to slow down and give them time to digest and make sure I hear them, because face-to-face, it's much more effective.
Right. Absolutely. Actually, Mitch is going to do one of these for us, I think, Monday.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Absolutely. Very, very cool. So, past client and sphere is the biggest bulk of your business, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 50%, 60%, 80%? What do you think it is?
60%.
60%.
Yeah.
Okay. And the balance of the business comes from?
Old expireds, just listed, just sold. You know, so San Luis proper, like right now we have 100 active listings, and that's kind of been consistent. But, you know, if I go around to different towns, there might be 30 in Morro Bay and 60 in Pismo Beach. So it's a relatively small community. So we don't get a big volume of FSBOs and expireds. There's getting to be more. But a lot of it is just around listings and sales. And I've gone back to that because I want people to know there's activity, and it's I enjoy that. That's how I built my business. So I might just make 10 calls, you know, but you get a lot of information by just canvassing out there and telling people what's happening in the marketplace. And a lot of people think, you know, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. They're shocked to know that people are still buying and selling homes.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
So Hal, how many years in this business?
It's 91. So I think 28, 29-ish. Yeah.
Okay. So I hear this from agents all the time. I don't want to have to grind. Do you think you grind?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So tell me about that. What does that mean to you?
I mean, if I don't grind, business doesn't happen.
Okay.
And unfortunately, good or bad, my ego is still tied to my production, right? So, you know, fortunately this year, you know, my goal was for the last several years, I've had the same coach. She was great. She retired, was like 42 contacts a day, 42 contacts a day. Got a new coach in January, you know, known him a long time, and he kind of changed it. And I was getting down where my contacts per listing was getting pretty darn low, right? And that's exciting. You know, when you can see results faster, that's exciting. But I kind of had the sense that maybe it wasn't going to last. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a habit for me. I'm pretty disciplined in what I eat and how I exercise and take care of myself with my time. But I don't think I'm worth anything unless I'm out talking to people. I think that's where my value is. And you get information and you provide better value to the clientele and to the public.
Got it.
It's just the way I'm wired.
So you're kind of still previewing property?
I'm not great at previewing, no.
Okay.
But I've sold a lot of houses in the town, so
you know what's available and what's selling.
It's not too big, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So one of the, I don't know if you got the email I sent earlier today, and you can think about this now, maybe you don't have the answer. I want to start asking everyone that we're interviewing, what is their favorite or most valuable objection handler? What's the one that tends to work the best for them? And you can think about that. You don't have to have it right up. But if there's something that pops into your head, is there a particular objection handler that you use more often than not?
I don't know if there's a more, it's like I tell with my escrow manager, you know, we're always coming across challenges like, oh gosh, we represent a seller and the buyer wants 10,000 off the price because we have a lot of old houses. So it's preparing, for me, it's more the pattern, you know, and it's more, there's a great book, Never Split the Difference, by a guy that's an FBI negotiator named Chris Voss.
Chris
and he
Voss,
talks about labeling, right? And he does a couple of things, right? So it's just more of a pattern. It's like acknowledging, yeah, I know this is crazy, you know, and labeling says, you know, you must be upset or you're thinking that. And just go to his website. If you go to the Black Swan Group, and he gives these little tidbits, and it's kind of along Mike Ferry, but it's just a little bit more specific in this. You know, it sounds like, you know, you're frustrated by the process, right?
Uh-huh.
It seems like this was a surprise for you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and by what we call labeling these things, people go, that's right, you get it. And you don't have to agree with them. When they think you feel that they've been heard, and they go, that's right, that's why I'm pissed. That's right, that's why I think it's a big. If you get them to say that's right, then you can move forward. Okay. So, you know, it's like the expired script. You're probably thinking, you know, hey, if my house was going to sold, it would have sold by now. If it was listed, it would have sold by now. And when you say that, they go, that's right. Then they go, oh, this guy gets me. Okay. Or this gal gets me. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So it's just always, you know, it's just like, yeah, this is frustrating. You know, it seems like, you know, obviously you don't want to give any money. Yeah, exactly. Why would I give any money, right? So it's just creating agreement and then giving people options. Hey, you can always not sell your house. You know, we could put it on the market now, or we can wait a little bit while. Okay, what are you thinking? Well, I want to do this. Okay, well, can I share with you how that might work against you? Well, what do you mean? Well, if you wait till this thing is over, what do you think everybody else is doing? Right?
Got it.
All these other homes come back on the market. Okay.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And do you think people are going to have more money because of all the lockdowns, or maybe a little bit less? Okay, a little less. Okay, so what do you think that's going to do?
Mhm.
Right. So it's just more the pattern that Mike teaches us, I think.
And ask and to that, you're asking questions. You're not telling. Nothing that you said was telling. Everything was asking questions, but coming to leading the client to the conclusion you wanted them to come to, correct?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Great. So let me go back here. Thank you for that. How about
let me do comment on this though,
okay,
because
please.
you talked about grinding. As a group, do we think there's more buyers and sellers now than a month or two ago, or less?
Group? More or less.
Probably less. I see Robert going like this. Yeah, I mean,
think
in
there's
general,
less.
yeah. I mean, I look at our inventory; it's down. Our new pendings are down. Hey, it happens. We've had an unbelievable market until like March 15th of this year. Probably the best I've ever seen. I mean, our first quarter was going crazy here in this market. We were very lucky. So if there's less out there, as Mike always says, there's going to be less agents. A lot of agents are pulling back. Okay, and at the same time, we got to spend more upfront time. But in your markets, I got to imagine if you have a decent property that's well priced, people want to buy it. Is that true, Neil?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we might have to spend a little bit more upfront time, but I guarantee you there's very few people that are out there doing it now. Because to me, this is more a disease of the mind than it is of the human sickness.
So how I get it, a lot of the agents on this call kind of get it, but if you go deeper, how do we help a newer agent that doesn't have, I'll use Valerie Caro's blind faith. You come from the blind faith era, just like I do. So how do we explain to them about the blind faith and doing the activities? How would you approach that?
Well, gosh, I haven't always had blind faith. You know, I've had to develop it, right? And there are times, I think Greg Harrelson says this a lot. This is more a confidence game than anything, right? So you just have to keep giving yourself mental clues on how this works. Trust me, there are days when I go, this doesn't seem to be working, right? Because it just takes time, right?
So what do you do on those days when you have years and years and years and years of knowing this works, and you have a ton of friends that make it work at a really, really high level? How do you get through that? How does Hal get through that?
Well, I think there's two things. One, you know, when you're starting out, you don't have a baseline, right? I mean, I think my first 6 months, I made zero money in the business. My first year, I made $10,000, which was maybe I don't know what it was, you know, and I probably spent 11. So you don't have a baseline, but you know, the problem is, the challenge is if you get to a certain baseline, if you're used to selling 20 homes a year and making $120,000, and then suddenly you go to 50, you're like, whoa, right? So you have to have that baseline. Fortunately, if you keep expanding your business, that gets higher. So when you go back, it's like, what is this? So having the baseline is important, but also having the eye on the prize is critically important. And so like if you're following Mike's system and your system, if you're keeping track of your numbers, you go, oh, okay, I've only made 20 contacts a day. I've made 60 contacts. It still takes me 80 to get a listing or a deal. I just got to keep at it, right? And, you know, I was in sports and there's a lot of repetition and, you know, there's a lot of plateaus and then there's a jump, right? And so you got to enjoy it enough and be committed enough and find whatever it is that keeps you going, that you do it. And for me, it's like, you know, I want to pay off debt. I want less, you know, hours. I want to get to, you know, there's a lot of things I want to accomplish. But at the same time, I'm not going to just retire. Okay. Like if I had to be home during this virus and locked in shelter and not doing business, somebody would be dead. I'd go crazy. I'd definitely be single. Yeah. My wife would have shot me.
Interesting stuff. So we talk about the why sometimes, and it kind of sounds like that you find the why, but it also sounds like your why has moved for you. Does it move and you have to do something special, read a book, talk to a person to find that kickstart? What is that for you?
Oh, absolutely. It changes all the time, right? So I've been, I, I I work a lot of hours. I get up early, I exercise, I'm in my office, usually about 8. And I usually have a half hour of emails. My wife says I don't spend, I'll work till 5 or 6, and then I have, emails to catch up on. And I just feel like I like knocking that stuff out. So for me, it was just really trying to scale it back. Okay. So that I can do this like 35 hours a week. To me, that would be retirement, right? Work a full day Monday, get off at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, golf in the afternoon, Wednesday, full day, Thursday, half day, play some volleyball, do some surfing, Friday, another half day, and then take 4 or 5 days off once a month, or a big vacation here and there. That to me sounds great. So that's my new motivation. And Tony was getting me there where I could be more effective in less time. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, if you could do what you do now in half the time or be twice as productive in the time you're working now, that's where it gets fun. I mean, for me, it gets fun when you get better. You're more effective.
I like that. And more effective, more efficient. And you get more effective and more efficient by practicing. You do your practicing your scripts and dialogues.
Yeah.
Does Hal Sweasey still practice his scripts and dialogues?
Yeah, I've got a role play Monday at 8, Tuesday at 7 and 8, none on Wednesday because I shifted my coaching call, so I have to fill that. Thursday at 8:15, and then Friday at 7 and 8.
And you
and
spend what,
Monday
half
at
an hour?
Those are 15 minutes. Like the 7 a.m. ones, I'm like leaving the gym. So I've got somebody from the East Coast that's very aggressively followed up to role play, which is great. So we role play as I drive home from the gym. And then 8 o'clock, it's about 15 minutes each. Yeah.
Keeps you sharp.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's accountability. Trust me. Right.
Now, when you say accountability, what does that mean? Showing up for the call?
That means if on Wednesdays I get in the office a little bit later than the days I have role plays at 8 a.m. Wonder why that happens.
Oh, interesting. So there's no role play, so you kind of come to the office when you get there.
I might get there at 8:10, 8:15. What, it's not a big deal, but it's like you got to build that structure so you don't have a wiggle room to get out.
So do you do that with your whole day?
Yeah, I mean, basically I eat lunch at 1. I usually prospect till 1. I'm trying to just do basically 8:15, 8:30 to 12 or 12:30. So about 3 hours should get me my 30 contacts. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm adjusting to that. So the key is now getting it done in that time frame, because I'm just being honest, I'm allowing a lot more distractions.
So the distractions are what?
Keeping a deal together, at this point, just a little bit more hand holding, right? So I'm trying to be responsive for clients. If you go to that Chris Voss book and go to that Black Swan Group website, he talks about, he has a real estate little section, and one of it talks about trust, and trust is built through predictability. And he said something which right along Mike Ferry's lines, but just differently. It says, they should know when you're going to hear from them next. Your client should know when they're next going to hear from you. There should never be surprises.
He talks about that all the time. And he tells them, I'm going to call you in an hour. I'll call you back in 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
So your client should know, hey, we'll call you. And then the last thing he says in this, and it's just great, is how do you present bad news? Meaning a seller, and it's a weekly call and you've had no showings. It's not like, how you doing? Because there's COVID. You don't need to get into that conversation. It's just, hey, do you have time for your update? I just want to tell you, I have no news. We've had 3 viewers online or 10, but no showings. Okay. Do you have any questions about that? No. Just be straight with them. Just get right to the point.
Got it.
Yeah.
And did you do it any differently before? Were you a little bit evasive before?
Yeah. I don't like it when there's no activity on one of my listings.
Okay.
Or I'm pretty good at bringing bad news if it's in a transaction. I don't have a problem with that, because that's when we go to work. That's when we earn our money, right? Hey, we got a little challenge with an appraisal. I got a home inspection, the loan, this is what's happening. And, to me, we become ER doctors. It's like your kid goes to the ER. You want somebody who's going to jump on it stat. you want them to address it, and you want them to give you options. Okay. And I thrive in that circumstance.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. Excellent. Hal, do you mind taking a couple questions?
Of course. I see a
Okay.
lot of famous people here. Meg Middleton, Kathy Ashford. Gosh, you've got a bunch of
Yeah.
great agents here. I'm scanning through. Yeah, anyway, I'm not very good with the Zoom, but okay.
It's fun though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Robert, are you catching any of the questions here that?
Yeah,
Oh,
so what's your afternoon schedule?
My afternoon schedule. So at noon, I'll call my remote escrow manager. I'll do some follow-up between 12 and 1, try to do a CMA. 1 o'clock, I take lunch. One day a week at 2, I'll just have a little like training 2 to 2:45 with buyer's agents. But normally it's appointments. And quite honestly, I was practicing my retirement, get my appointments done. They're done by phone. They're easier. So I was leaving at like 4 to go golf or something like that and staying 5:30 and 6. Okay. So afternoon's pretty loose. You know, if I got property to preview, I'll preview a little bit, but it's CMAs, it's follow-ups. I do a lot of service for clients, like an estate person that passed final call and, hey, can you give me a value of my parents' house from 2 years ago when dad passed away? Sure. You know, I have somebody help me with that, but I pull the comps. So it's a little bit more fluid. The morning's very structured.
Got it.
okay, cool. Good. Nancy asked how you're dealing with seller reluctance to list at this time.
Well, they have to be motivated, right? So what I learned this morning, and I think this is good to share with everybody on this call because it was a little bit news to me, because I was taking a pretty like, I'm not sure what direction the market's heading, whether it goes up or down, I can't control it, but you know, it's nice to know, I have a sense. But one agent in Oklahoma opened up and another guy in Florida, I think they opened up, both said their business has kind of popped back up, the market, not their business, but maybe their business, to pre-COVID levels, okay? And they had houses that had been sitting with no activity now getting offers. So I would be talking to a seller going, listen, obviously, you know, we got 3 options. You know, 1, take it off the market. 2, you know, leave it on the market, you know, or 3, just, you know, postpone or whatever it is, or maybe it's 2 options. But I would just go, listen, what would you like to do? What's your biggest concern? Okay, the concern is either the market or their concern is their health. Okay,
Right.
and you need to address the concern. Why do they want to wait? Okay, in my opinion, those are usually the only 2 things. Okay, so finding out what their concern is the biggest, then you have to be able to address it. So can you safely get someone in their house, and can you explain it where that can happen? And it's only going to be a couple. Okay, versus let's say they release all this and anybody can go in anybody's house. Are people instantly who are nervous about their health going to go, sure, come on in, let's have a party? Right? No. So you got to address that. And then are there upsides and downsides versus waiting versus, you know, staying on the marketplace?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Good stuff. Barry asked, and you may have touched on it already, you know, what was the biggest change or 1 or 2 changes that you made to help you close deals during this time?
Well, I think it's setting expectations. And I haven't actually had to do it very much because I have noticed that most people are more cooperative. Okay. So for now, and this could change, people are like, okay, we're in this together. So sellers seem to be more understanding to give people more time. Okay. And people understand that the loan might take longer and a home inspector might. So I think there's a more understanding, but I'm also just preparing people like, okay, this is going to be different now. This could be the new normal. Okay. But let's just brace ourselves so things are going to take a little bit longer than we hoped. Okay. We're going to have a little bit more patience, you know, that's all we can do is prepare them for that.
Got it. And be available.
And be available.
And be available. Have you spent more hours doing that?
I was spending more hours doing that last summer. The market has slowed down last summer. I was doing more nurturing because what I was seeing in the marketplace, and what I was seeing in the marketplace is if you had a home that was in escrow and it fell out and it came back on the market, and I have very specific examples, they were selling for less. So I had one 2 doors down from my office, listed for $9.99, came on the market, went in escrow right away, 3 offers, fell out in like April. And then nothing, crickets. Then they dropped to $9.75, nothing. $9.65, they go back in escrow, yay. Okay, then it falls out again. I say, this is my transaction. I just witnessed it down the street. And they finally sold it about 5 months later for $9.30. And I would just say, what does that tell you about the market?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you want this to fall out? Because here's what other people are experiencing. Is that what you want?
Got it.
Okay, and then it picked
Got
up in
it.
January, February, March, probably the same there, very strong. And then we had the bat virus.
Okay, cool. Is there a specific thing that you do to stay in touch with your COI other than the 4 phone calls a year?
I mail a postcard, and then I do a once a month a video, a market update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So you produce that yourself, or do you have somebody else do it?
Yeah, so it's like viral marketing was back in the day. So I think I started in 11 or 12, and it's been a good tool. So when I'm prospecting, it's my thing to, like, you know, if they're not going to do anything or they're locally out of the area and I have a decent rapport, I'll just say, hey, do you want to be updated on the market? I have a little bit better script, but, oh, okay, well, we have a monthly update. We got 7,000 subscribers. Would you like to be included on the updates? Yeah, no.
Oh, wow. Very
Greg
cool.
Harrelson. Yeah. Stole that from Greg Harrelson.
Yeah, got it. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so what would you leave us with? The 1, 2, 3 items that if you did these couple of things right now could help us get through, do a couple more deals, a buyer or seller, just something like, hey, this will help you.
Well, I think for a lot of us, this is the unknown, right? We've never seen anything like this. You know, I don't know about you guys. I'm not much of a big news watcher, but in the beginning, I'm looking at things. I'll check a little bit more. Hey, how many cases are there? What's happening? What are they saying? You know, should I be not, you know, don't touch your face, all these things. So there's just so many unknowns that I think for us, whether it's as a real estate person, as a leader of a family, as a person in the community, in your church, somebody needs to take that leadership role. And I think I used this example when this first started happening with people on my team. And I said, listen, nobody's shooting at us. This is not a war. This is kind of an invisible threat. So it's not like you're walking down the street seeing people graphically on the ground with blood dripping out of their head or their mouth. That's not happening. But if you looked at it from a mental perspective, you'd see bodies everywhere with, you know, their mind, right? So to me, we have to take responsibility for that. And really, if you put it upon yourself to be somebody that's going to be strong and give guidance, give people straight answers and give them hope, that's what they're looking for, okay? And we all look for it in different places, but if we can be there, you know, I see the compassion amongst our buyers and sellers just on a transactional basis. People aren't saying, well, that guy's, you know, trying to nickel and dime me. I don't get as much of that. So I think if we can be that strong leading guidance to say, just so you know, there are people that are buying and selling houses. People have to move. They have to leave one house. They get a job transfer. They've sold their house. The place is too big. They have to sell. They have to move. People need our help. So let's be there to help them. Okay. And if it's not the right time to sell, hey, if that's their decision, let's respect it and go help someone who really needs it. Okay. And again, I like to use the analogy of like that, remember the MASH tent? So there was that movie MASH. If you're in a medical hospital and you got 100 patients and you got 3 beds, guess what? You got to make a decision, right? So you got to help the people you best can help as quickly as you possibly can. So be a leader, you know, keep your end of the bargain up and be a role model for people and keep your mind and your energy as strong as you possibly can. We have a choice of how we react to these things. We have no choice of what happens out there, but I would try to keep what's happening in this pandemic in perspective in relation to other things, okay? Because there's a lot of things that can kill us, and I don't want to make light of this, but you know, there's a lot of other things that could be worse. What if our water, you know, source was tarnished? What if we didn't have water? That would be huge on everybody. Okay. So I try to keep it in perspective and try to be as much of an uplifter for others as I can through my business and just in my actions. So reach out and do the best you can.
Great advice, and how you are definitely a light unto others. You're an example and have been an example as long as I've known you and been involved in the program. And you continue it by taking of your time today and sharing and just being a calming force, but direct. I mean, that's very powerful, and we really appreciate it. The thought I'm going to take away from this is more a confidence game than anything, and that's right on target. Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Let's give him a big hand, everyone.
Thank you.
Hal Sweasey.
You guys have a great day. Enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.